The mistress got a ring. The pregnant wife got kicked out. The millionaire got left with nothing. They say money makes life simpler. But for Andrew Harrington, a self-made millionaire with an enviable Beverly Hills address, an impressive circle of influential acquaintances, and a pregnant wife named Lucy Life was anything but simple. One scandalous choice, an affair with the stunningly manipulative Veronica Mendez, unleashed a torrent of consequences that no one could have foreseen. What began as a secret indulgence spiraled into a storm of betrayal, heartbreak, and a brutal showdown that left Andrew scrambling for redemption. In this explosive tale, loyalty, family, and fortune collide, and one man's empire comes crashing down in the most dramatic karmic twist imaginable. Andrew Harrington was born with little more than a restless ambition and a sharp mind. Contrary to popular assumptions about wealthy families, Andrew didn't inherit a trust fund or a silver spoon. He had grown up in a modest two-bedroom apartment in Santa Monica, California. His father, Colin Harrington, worked 2 jobs, one as a security guard at a local mall, and another as a night shift taxi driver, just to keep the family afloat. Andrew's mother, Felicia, was a loving homemaker who took on side gigs, ironing clothes for neighbors or baking homemade pies to sell at community events. The daily hustle of both parents instilled in Andrew a deep determination to one day claim the financial security that had eluded them. From the time he was 15, Andrew displayed a natural knack for understanding business. He would spend hours watching documentaries about entrepreneurs, people like Mark Cuban, Barbara Corcoran, and even Bill Gates, trying to decipher how they made their fortunes. While his peers were fixated on football games or parties, Andrew was devouring books on real estate marketing strategies and the psychology of sales. He even joined a local youth entrepreneurship club where he pitched ideas for lawn care services and small e-commerce ventures. Those early experiences lit a fire in him. He vowed never to be shackled by the constraints of debt and financial desperation. It was at Santa Monica High School that Andrew crossed paths with Lucy Ramirez, an encounter that would change the trajectory of his life in ways he would only understand much later. Lucy was a bright student with a compassionate heart, known for volunteering at animal shelters and local nursing homes. With her big brown eyes and kind smile, she seemed to draw people in with a warmth few possessed. Though Lucy's family was of modest means, her father managed a local grocery store, and her mother worked part-time at a boutique. Their household was rich in love unity, and shared dreams Lucy and Andrew found in each other, not just teenage love, but also a partner in ambition. Their first real date wasn't a fancy dinner. Andrew couldn't afford that yet. But a picnic on Santa Monica Beach, where they talked about their visions for the future. Lucy wanted to become a teacher or a counselor, hoping to guide kids to find their self-worth. Andrew aspired to build a real estate empire, envisioning a string of apartment complexes across the country. For them, sitting under the pink-orange California sunset, the future held nothing but promise. After high school, Andrew secured a small scholarship to attend a local community college. He studied business administration and, in parallel, started working as an intern at a real estate office. Lucy, on the other hand, went to a state university to pursue a degree in education. They remained close, despite the challenges of distance and busyness. Every weekend, Andrew would drive his beat-up blue Honda to Lucy's campus, and they'd grab an affordable bite at a local cafe, planning how they would one day make each other's dreams come true. That grit and unified vision eventually paid off. By the time Andrew turned 24, he had flipped his first house with a small group of investors he met at his internship. From there, he took bigger and bolder steps. investing in foreclosed properties, renovating them and selling them at a profit. Lucy stood by his side, through it all cheering him on, even when deals got messy. Over time, Andrew's name started appearing in small real estate journals, praising his keen eye for undervalued properties. Eventually, Andrew's success became too large to ignore. He formed Harrington Properties, Inc., and made strategic moves that propelled him into the Millionaires Club by his 30th birthday. It was the dawn of a new chapter, a stunning house in Beverly Hills, a burgeoning list of celebrity clients, and dinners at five-star restaurants, where the bills were no longer a concern. Yet amidst all this success, Lucy remained the same, down-to-earth soul. She insisted they stay connected with their humble roots, making donations to local community centers and helping underprivileged families. She also landed a teaching position at a prestigious elementary school in Los Angeles, finding fulfillment in shaping young minds. While Andrew was busy with corporate expansions and investment deals, Lucy taught art classes and organized library fundraisers. Behind the scenes, however, Andrew was slowly changing. As invitations to elite parties and lavish gatherings piled up, so did his sense of self-importance. High-profile connections introduced him to a lifestyle that Lucy found excessive. She would occasionally accompany him to these events, black tie galas for philanthropic causes, exclusive dinner parties in mansions overlooking the Pacific. But Lucy never felt entirely comfortable with the pretentious conversations and the obsession with status. Despite her reluctance, Lucy tried to adapt to Andrew's new world, supporting him the best she could. Unbeknownst to her, those nights out and high society events would eventually lead Andrew into a world of temptation, a world embodied by a single name: Veronica Mendez. By the time Andrew and Lucy had been married for 5 years, Harrington Properties had expanded across multiple states. The once scrappy entrepreneur now presided over a small empire. Interview requests from major financial publications became the norm. Andrew was even invited to appear on a popular business TV show to discuss the real estate market trends on the West Coast. Lucy's life was also entering an exciting phase. After years of teaching and earning the respect of both parents and faculty, she was offered a senior administrative role at her school. Yet as she pondered this new opportunity, a more momentous piece of news overshadowed every career decision. Lucy discovered she was pregnant. She spent an entire afternoon crafting a surprise for Andrew, a small box containing a tiny pair of baby shoes, along with a handwritten note that read, "Our greatest investment." Yet, she envisioned how Andrew's face would light up when he opened it, how his eyes would crinkle with that boyish grin she remembered from high school. Lucy imagined the moment as a reaffirmation of their unity, a bridge reconnecting their worlds. When Andrew came home that evening, Lucy noticed the faint smell of expensive cologne that wasn't his usual brand. She shrugged it off, thinking maybe he'd tried a new scent from one of his colleagues or had gone to a different barber shop. Brimming with excitement, she presented him with the box. Andrew's reaction was exactly what she'd hoped for. At least on the surface, he scooped her into a hug, tears glistening in his eyes, and showered her with praises. "I can't believe we're going to be parents," he repeated. However, beneath that facade, something was amiss. The next few weeks saw Andrew spending even more time at the office, allegedly finalizing a major investment deal for a luxury condo project in Miami. When Lucy asked for details, he was vague, claiming it was all hush-hush, that he'd reveal more once everything was finalized. Preoccupied with the pregnancy, Lucy tried to rationalize his distance. She knew big deals meant big stress. Andrew, for his part, would still kiss her on the forehead every morning before leaving for the day. But his late-night returns and cryptic phone calls hinted at secrets. On weekends, he'd claim an urgent business matter had come up, then spend hours away unreachable. Meanwhile, Lucy's excitement for their unborn child was boundless. She researched baby cribs, read parenting books, and even started crocheting tiny blankets. Andrew participated by writing checks for any baby item Lucy wanted, but he rarely accompanied her to doctor's appointments or baby stores, brushing it off with honey. I'm swamped with back-to-back meetings. You handle the baby stuff. I trust you. While grateful for the financial support, Lucy longed for his emotional presence. During this period, Lucy's close friend, Samantha Hall, an old college acquaintance, now working as a fashion consultant in Los Angeles, noticed Lucy's quiet concern. She confronted Lucy. You're glowing, but there's something missing in your eyes. Is everything all right? Lucy hesitated, not wanting to cast blame on Andrew, but with Samantha's gentle urging, she finally admitted she feared Andrew was slipping away. He's different these days. Sam, Lucy confided, I know he loves me, but I feel like there's a wall between us. A few days later, Samantha mentioned in passing that she had seen Andrew entering the Ritz-Carlton hotel lobby late at night, accompanied by a striking brunette in a red dress. Samantha couldn't confirm who the woman was, but the sight unsettled her enough to bring it up to Lucy. Lucy tried to quell her panic by rationalizing that Andrew often met clients or investors at high-end hotels, and that perhaps Samantha saw him with a colleague. Yet the niggling suspicion wouldn't go away. Shortly after Andrew started receiving text messages at odd hours, Lucy occasionally caught glimpses of them, cryptic emojis, hearts, or brief messages like "Miss You" from a contact labeled only with initials. Lucy's heart clenched every time she saw the phone light up. She wished desperately that her instincts were wrong, that VM was simply a harmless business associate. But the hush-hush manner in which Andrew guarded his phone told another story. Lucy's first prenatal appointment was approaching, and she pleaded with Andrew to attend. It's important to me, she said softly, placing a hand on her stomach. He promised he'd make it work. The day arrived, and Lucy sat in the waiting room, scanning each face that walked in, hoping the next person would be Andrew. But Andrew never showed. Lucy ended up taking her ultrasound pictures alone, tears forming as she heard the steady heartbeat of the life growing inside her. On her way out, Lucy called Andrew. The phone rang endlessly. No answer. Later that evening, Andrew breezed into the house, offering a litany of excuses. An emergency investor, call a car breakdown. And finally, I'm sorry, Lucy, but I couldn't get away. The apology felt hollow. For the first time in their marriage, Lucy slept in the guest bedroom, her heart aching and her mind crowded with suspicion and dread. She couldn't have known then that Andrew had spent the afternoon with Veronica Mendez at a private brunch in Malibu, sealing a different kind of deal that would drastically alter his life and Lucy's forever. Veronica Mendez was the daughter of a wealthy hotel magnate from Mexico City. She had studied fashion design in Paris and marketing in New York, eventually drifting to Los Angeles in search of glamour and celebrity. Known among her circle as a consummate social climber, Veronica had a singular talent for gravitating toward men with the power and means to elevate her lifestyle. Andrew met Veronica at a charity gala organized by an influential friend, James Winston, who happened to be courting Veronica at the time. The event was in support of mental health awareness and took place in a sprawling mansion overlooking the Pacific. Lucy had declined to attend that evening, feeling fatigued from her early pregnancy and somewhat out of place at these flashy gatherings. Andrew, standing by a marble fountain in the mansion's courtyard, was approached by Veronica, clad in a form-fitting sequined silver gown. She introduced herself coyly, her accent lending an exotic flair to her speech. The conversation started innocently enough small talk about the gala, a quip about the pretentious decor, and remarks about the mouth-watering hors d'oeuvres. But the chemistry was undeniable. Veronica was not just beautiful. She was cunningly perceptive. She quickly zeroed in on Andrew's vulnerabilities, the need for admiration, the subtle insecurity that came from having to hustle his way up the social ladder, and the tension in his marriage. She laughed at his jokes, complimented his real estate ventures, and told him stories of her lavish upbringing. Within minutes, Andrew was entranced. He felt understood, valued for his accomplishments, in a way Lucy no longer displayed, at least not in Andrew's skewed perception. Veronica hammered the final nail by confiding, "I wish my father's hotels had someone like you to invest in them. You're a genius with properties, I've heard." Over the following weeks, Veronica would strategically bump into Andrew at different industry events, always appearing at the precise moment he was alone or bored. She listened with rapt attention as he explained his latest condo acquisition or a budding business partnership. When Andrew casually mentioned Lucy's pregnancy, Veronica displayed a perfectly measured reaction. A polite smile followed by a faint sigh of, "That's wonderful," but with a flicker in her eyes that suggested she was more intrigued than deterred, as Andrew's emotional distance from Lucy grew. His attachment to Veronica deepened. She became a frequent confidant, someone to whom he could complain about the stresses of fatherhood he was ill-prepared for, or the emotional demands of a wife who, so he claimed, didn't appreciate his workload. Veronica fed into every doubt Andrew had, magnifying Lucy's flaws while painting herself as an empathetic sanctuary. Their relationship escalated to clandestine lunches in hidden booths at five-star restaurants, business trips extended for private rendezvous, and eventually late nights at exclusive hotel suites. Andrew, in his hubris, believed he could compartmentalize the affair, that Lucy's pregnancy and Veronica's allure could coexist without colliding. He had convinced himself that a man of his status and means could handle both women in his life. However, Veronica had different plans. She didn't want to be a passing fling. She had a history of collecting men of influence, discarding them when they no longer served her ambitions. But Andrew was special, rising to the upper echelons of wealth faster than most. If played correctly, he could be her golden ticket to everything she ever desired: social standing, financial freedom, and a life of unbridled luxury. Veronica began dropping hints that she was ready for a more official place in Andrew's life. She feigned sadness about having to sneak around confiding in Andrew, that she deserved the dignity of an open relationship, especially since he was so unhappy with Lucy. Andrew, intoxicated by passion and vanity, started entertaining thoughts of a life with Veronica as his partner, and Lucy as a memory. After all, Lucy was just a simple school teacher, overshadowed by Veronica's sophistication and connections. What Andrew didn't realize was that while he thought he was making the choices, Veronica was controlling the entire game. With each text message, each meeting, she tightened her hold on him, and with Lucy pregnant, Andrew had the perfect storm of guilt and vulnerability to be manipulated. Lucy's life increasingly resembled a labyrinth of doubt and unease. She couldn't shake off the sleepless nights or the gnawing anxiety that something catastrophic was just around the corner. Samantha's passing comment about seeing Andrew with a mysterious woman had grown into a mental echo chamber. Yet Lucy, ever the optimist, prayed her suspicions were unfounded. After all, Andrew had been her high school sweetheart, the one man she trusted with her life. That fragile trust, however, was on the verge of shattering. One evening, Lucy was rummaging through the closet, looking for Andrew's laptop charger. Andrew had texted her in a panic from the office, claiming he'd forgotten the charger at home and needed it ASAP for a late-night video conference. In the corner of the closet shelf, Lucy stumbled upon an unmarked brown envelope. Curiosity got the better of her, and she opened it, finding a receipt for an upscale jewelry store in Beverly Hills. The item, a diamond ring worth over $50,000. The date on the receipt was just a week prior. Lucy's initial thought was that Andrew planned to surprise her with a push present, a gift often given by partners to celebrate the birth of a child. But as she traced her finger over the store name, a gnawing voice inside asked, why wouldn't he keep something like this more discreetly? Or why wouldn't he simply hand it to you with excitement? And why does the receipt say, custom ring with initials V.M.M.? Her mind froze at those initials, the same initials she'd seen on the text messages that Andrew guarded so carefully. Blood pounded in Lucy's ears. She felt a swell of anger and heartbreak, surging from deep within, nearly knocking the breath out of her. Stumbling backward, she sat on the edge of the bed, pressing a hand over her belly. There was no denying it. Andrew was buying an extravagant ring for another woman, someone with the initials V. Instead of confronting Andrew that night, Lucy decided to gather more evidence. She reached out to Samantha, who promptly volunteered to help. The next day, Samantha discreetly contacted an acquaintance who worked at the Beverly Hills jewelry store. Through some subtle questioning, she confirmed that the ring had indeed been engraved with V.M. Veronica Mendez. Samantha relayed the information to Lucy, who listened in stunned silence. The illusions of denial shattered all at once. Lucy's heartbreak collided with her maternal instincts. She was carrying Andrew's child, and part of her still wanted to preserve their life together for the baby's sake. Another part, however, recoiled at the betrayal, feeling an overwhelming urge to escape the facade and reclaim her dignity. The tension at home escalated. Lucy's once quiet tears became open accusations. Who is Veronica Mendez? Lucy demanded one night, her voice trembling. Andrew, pale and tight-lipped, tried to deny it, at first claiming she was just a business associate. But Lucy hurled the jewelry store receipt at him, tears brimming in her eyes. Stop lying to me. You bought her a ring with her initials. Cornered, Andrew erupted. You don't understand, he shouted, surprising even himself with the intensity of his anger. I've been under so much pressure. I didn't plan for it to happen this way. Veronica and we just connected. Andrew's voice faltered, but not enough to show genuine remorse. Lucy stared at him in disbelief. We're having a baby, Andrew. Don't you feel any shame? He froze, his jaw clenched. I never wanted a child right now. I've got too much going on. The words left his mouth before he could stop them. They hung in the air like a poisonous cloud. Lucy felt as though she had been slapped across the face. She retreated to the bedroom, locking the door behind her to sob uncontrollably. In the days that followed, Lucy wrestled with a whirlwind of emotions: outrage, sorrow, shock, and a strange protective instinct for her unborn child. Andrew offered half-baked apologies, but refused to end the affair. He was in too deep with Veronica. Instead, he suggested a twisted compromise. Let me help you financially. You can even stay here until the baby is born. But don't interfere with what I have with Veronica. It was a heartless proposition that triggered Lucy's final break. Shaken to the core, Lucy began planning her departure. She secretly packed her clothes and small keepsakes into boxes, determined to leave before Andrew's cruelty broke her spirit entirely. She held on to a glimmer of hope that the Andrew she once knew might resurface, but each passing day hardened her resolve. No matter how badly it hurt, she couldn't remain in a marriage where she and her unborn child were relegated to second place. Lucy made her decision official on a cold Tuesday morning. She woke early, packed the last of her belongings, and decided she would go to her parents' small home in Culver City, at least until she figured out her next step. Andrew, who had spent the night at Veronica's condo, was blissfully unaware of Lucy's plan. As Lucy was hauling her suitcases toward the front door, Andrew walked in. He was wearing the same suit from the night before, looking haggard, but there was a noticeable glow in his eyes. He appeared startled to see Lucy dragging her luggage out. "Where do you think you're going?" he asked, his voice laced with more irritation than concern. Lucy stood her ground. "I'm leaving Andrew. I refuse to share you with anyone, let alone the woman you're buying diamond rings for." She glanced down at her abdomen, her voice quivering. "Our child deserves better than this toxic environment." Andrew's face hardened the tension in the air, nearly suffocating. "You can't just walk away," he snapped. "We have a marriage and you're carrying my child. You're the one who walked away first," Lucy said, tears threatening to spill. "You just didn't have the decency to do it openly." Andrew bit his lip, struggling to maintain control. He took a deep breath, then abruptly turned cold. "Fine. If this is what you want, then get out. But don't come crying back when reality sets in. I'll have my lawyers draw up some arrangements for the child's support." He stepped aside and let Lucy pass as if she were a mere visitor in a house that once was hers too. Lucy froze, momentarily stunned at how easily he'd let her go. Part of her wanted him to stop her, to beg for forgiveness, and vow to fix everything. But he didn't. His indifference was a final, brutal confirmation that the man she loved was gone. She left her hands trembling as she gripped the suitcase handle, a swirl of heartbreak and relief washing over her. Within days, Andrew took a further step that even Lucy hadn't anticipated. He filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. It was as if he wanted to erase Lucy and the unborn child from his life story as efficiently as possible. For a woman already reeling from betrayal, it was the cruelest blow. News of the divorce spread among their social circles, triggering a cascade of gossip that Andrew tried to control with his wealth and influence, while Lucy hid from the spotlight, too exhausted and fragile to defend herself. In the weeks that followed, Andrew moved Veronica into his home, the same Beverly Hills house that Lucy had painstakingly decorated with love. Word got around that Veronica was flaunting a massive diamond ring on her finger, parading it at every luxury boutique and high society event she could squeeze into. The ring was rumored to be a custom piece from one of the most exclusive jewelers in California, likely the same receipt Lucy had discovered. Meanwhile, Lucy found refuge with her parents, who welcomed her with open arms. Her mother's eyes brimmed with tears upon seeing her daughter's exhausted face and the noticeable baby bump. Her father, a man of few words, simply embraced Lucy for a long moment, as if to shield her from a world that had turned predatory. Despite the heartbreak, Lucy took small but resolute steps toward rebuilding her life. She resumed teaching on a reduced schedule, seeking solace in the bright smiles of her students. Every day she would place a hand over her belly, reminding herself she was carrying a small miracle that deserved a fighting chance at a better life. The baby's occasional kicks felt like gentle reassurances that hope still lived within her. Andrew, on the other hand, was spiraling deeper into Veronica's web. He hosted lavish parties, introduced Veronica to influential business contacts, and even put her in charge of a new luxury interior design division of Harrington Properties. He did it all under the delusion that he was leveling up, that, by discarding his past life, he could ascend to an even more exalted social realm. But subtle cracks were already forming beneath the surface. Veronica, with her polished smile and enchanting aura, began hinting that she wanted a wedding, an extravagant spectacle in Italy perhaps, or a star-studded gala in Los Angeles. Andrew, enthralled, promised her the moon, barely pausing to consider the ramifications, while Lucy fought morning sickness alone and navigated her heartbreak. Veronica boasted online about wedding venues and couture wedding gowns. Yet no one anticipated the sudden shift in Andrew's business fortunes, a shift so dramatic that it would rattle the foundations of Harrington Properties and expose the shallow loyalty of the people Andrew thought were his greatest allies. The day Andrew proposed to Veronica was meant to be a triumphant moment in his mind, a glittering exclamation mark on his new life. They were at an exclusive rooftop restaurant in downtown Los Angeles, lit by the glow of city lights. Veronica wore a slinky black gown with a plunging neckline, her eyes shining with anticipation. Andrew feeling as though he were living in a scene out of a glossy magazine, knelt down and presented her with an even more extravagant ring than before, a massive emerald-cut diamond flanked by smaller emeralds rumored to cost hundreds of thousands. Veronica squealed in delight, feigning surprise as she theatrically accepted. Cameras flashed from every angle, capturing the moment for tabloids and social media. The engaged couple toasted with vintage Dom Perignon, forging the image of a fairy tale romance. But beneath the veneer of champagne, bubbles and clinking glasses, Andrew's kingdom was beginning to show signs of collapse. Harrington Properties had soared rapidly, but as the real estate market started to shift, Andrew found himself over-leveraged. Several ambitious condo projects backed by staggering loans and reliant on an optimistic sales forecast were stalled. Additionally, a new environmental regulation halted construction near a protected wetland site, where Andrew had planned a massive luxury villa development. Fines, legal disputes, and investor lawsuits loomed ominously on the horizon. While Andrew had once deftly navigated business challenges, this time he was distracted. The bulk of his attention was fixated on Veronica and the whirlwind of wedding plans. He left much of the crisis management to junior executives who were ill-equipped to handle a downturn of this magnitude. Investors grew wary. Rumors swirled about Andrew's personal life, overshadowing his professional responsibilities. The board of Harrington Properties, comprised of seasoned real estate veterans and major stakeholders, summoned Andrew to an emergency meeting. Andrew's mind, still in a post-proposal haze, waved off the meeting as a formality. He believed he could charm or strong-arm his way through it, as he always had. The day of the board meeting was tense from the start. Andrew arrived late, Veronica in tow, wearing a tailored suit that spoke of arrogance more than professionalism. He took his seat at the head of a long mahogany table, lined with stern-faced board members. A hush fell over the room as the CEO of a major hedge fund, one of Harrington Properties' largest investors, opened a folder brimming with spreadsheets and documents detailing the company's precarious position. Andrew tried to explain the delays, citing unforeseen regulatory hurdles and market fluctuations, but the board members were unimpressed. They questioned his excessive personal spending, the extravagant parties, and why he was funneling so much capital into vanity projects with questionable returns. One older board member, a respected industry veteran named Patricia Weber, spoke pointedly. "Andrew, we invested in your vision, not your indulgences. Your personal controversies are overshadowing everything else." Growing defensive, Andrew insisted he had everything under control. He painted a rosy picture of the next quarter's prospects, claiming new deals were on the horizon. But the data in front of the board contradicted him, revealing bleak sales numbers and a list of delayed construction permits. Veronica, seated in the back of the conference room, scrolled through her phone, uninterested. She occasionally offered Andrew a supportive nod, but her expression was restless, like she had more important things to do. She had no idea that the ground beneath Andrew's empire was cracking, or perhaps she simply didn't care. The meeting ended with the board demanding immediate corrective action and a detailed recovery plan. Andrew stormed out livid at what he perceived as disrespect from people who owed their profits to his genius. Veronica trailed him, trying to soothe his ego, promising that after they were married, he'd be unstoppable again. Andrew believed her, or at least desperately wanted to. What he failed to notice was that the first real seeds of doubt had been planted in Veronica's mind. She had attached herself to Andrew for limitless luxury and social access. Now his shaky financial standing threatened to derail that. Her extravagant tastes would not be satisfied by a man who teetered on the edge of corporate disaster. While Veronica smiled and played the doting fiancé, her gaze was already scanning the crowd searching for potential lifeboats in the form of new wealthy admirers. In a small but cozy corner of Culver City, Lucy was rebuilding her life. Though she occasionally felt the pang of heartbreak, she found unexpected strength in routine, teaching her students, helping her mother bake pastries on weekends, and getting involved with local community efforts. The swirl of scandal surrounding her separation from Andrew was mostly a distant hum in this neighborhood, where people cared less about tabloid headlines and more about the authenticity of one's character. Lucy's pregnancy advanced smoothly, though the emotional scars remained. She busied herself nesting for the baby, saving up for a modest apartment, and avoiding any news about Andrew's lavish engagement or business ups and downs. She didn't want the added stress to affect her health. However tidbits would still reach her ears, Samantha, concerned about Lucy's future, occasionally relayed rumors that Andrew's real estate firm was in trouble, that he was spending more time clubbing than attending to business, and that Veronica's name kept cropping up in questionable contexts. Lucy tried to dismiss these updates, focusing on her own life. Her family rallied around her, celebrating each milestone of the pregnancy. Her mother would knit baby clothes, while her father researched the best car seats. Samantha remained a pillar of emotional support, reminding Lucy that she was stronger than she realized. "You're going to be an amazing mother." Samantha often said, "Don't let Andrew's failures define your child's world." The first time Lucy felt the baby kick, she was folding laundry in her parents' living room. She stopped, hand pressed to her belly, tears welling up. In that moment, any lingering bitterness toward Andrew faded, replaced by awe for the tiny life she was entrusted with. "We'll be okay," she whispered to her baby. It became her daily affirmation. They would be okay, no matter how rocky the future looked. Despite Andrew's promise of financial support, Lucy never saw a dime. When she tried contacting him to discuss child support or medical bills, her calls went to voicemail. She left messages that went unanswered. Andrew's lawyer, a slick man named Garrett Mills, eventually sent a letter stating that any financial support would be contingent upon a formal paternity test, and legal proceedings. Lucy was both outraged and crushed. It was a callous move by Andrew, a complete negation of the intimacy they'd once shared. Still, Lucy pressed on. She used her teaching salary to pay her doctor visits, and thanks to her parents' unwavering generosity, she never lacked for essentials. Every bill she paid, every small step she took, reinforced her resilience. She was determined to create a safe and loving environment for her child, even if Andrew refused to be part of their story. Unbeknownst to Lucy, fate was orchestrating a rebalancing act of cosmic proportions. As her belly grew and her maternal love blossomed, Andrew's high-flying world was inching ever closer to a dramatic free fall. Harrington Properties' decline accelerated rapidly. What started as minor cash flow issues soon escalated into full-blown crises. Several of Andrew's high-profile projects became embroiled in lawsuits from environmental groups and disgruntled buyers. Bank loan officers who once eagerly financed Andrew's ventures were now calling in debts wary of the mounting liabilities. Andrew's lavish lifestyle became a glaring point of contention. The board demanded he liquidate unnecessary assets to free up capital, but Andrew stalled. He couldn't fathom letting go of his Beverly Hills mansion or the fleet of luxury cars that adorned his driveway. Veronica, too, was an ever-present drain on finances. She insisted on designer wardrobe updates, first-class travel, and constant spa treatments. Any talk of cost-cutting was met with scorn and passive-aggressive remarks about how Andrew shouldn't be cheap. Still, Andrew deluded himself that a single big deal would plug all the leaks. He zeroed in on a new commercial real estate project, a gargantuan hotel-condo hybrid near Las Vegas. If he could close this deal, he reasoned he'd recoup all his losses and re-establish Harrington Properties as a formidable player. To fund the initial phase, he mortgaged his mansion, sold off personal investments, and diverted resources from ongoing projects, leaving them half-finished. Word got out that Andrew was scrambling for cash. Competitors circled like sharks, poaching his key employees. Banks raised interest rates on his loans. The press, once captivated by his rags-to-riches story, turned on him. Headlines like "Real Estate," "Whiz Kid on the Brink" spread across business publications. In the midst of this chaos, Veronica's veneer of devotion began to crack. She started missing critical meetings where Andrew needed her support. She spent more time attending exclusive parties alone, brushing off Andrew's pleas for unity. The engagement ring on her finger served as her ticket to rub elbows with new wealthy prospects. When Andrew confronted her about her drifting loyalty, Veronica played the victim. "I can't help that I have a social life," she'd say, with a dismissive shrug. "And you're too busy with your failing company to spend time with me." Andrew felt a cold dread seeping into his bones. He saw how precarious his relationship with Veronica was, how it hinged on the constant flow of money and glitz. Yet he couldn't bring himself to end it. Pride and a twisted sense of love kept him tethered. He didn't want to admit that Lucy, the wife he had tossed aside, had been the true source of unwavering support in his life. As if on cue, a final blow struck. The Las Vegas deal fell through due to unresolved zoning issues and legal complications. The consortium of developers Andrew had courted backed out, leaving Harrington Properties on the hook for millions in sunk costs overnight. Andrew found himself nearly bankrupt. The board of directors convened once more. This time, for a vote of no confidence in Andrew's leadership, they forced him to step down as CEO, appointing Patricia Weber as interim chief executive. Andrew's world came to a halt. He was dethroned from the empire he had built brick by brick. His personal wealth was in tatters. Without the company's backing, he faced immediate legal actions and foreclosure notices. Through it all, Andrew stared at the charred remains of his career, realizing how his own hubris and betrayal had led to this downfall. He remembered the nights when Lucy would gently coax him to rest, telling him to pace himself. He remembered her unwavering belief in him. And yet, in his pursuit of fleeting excitement, he had burned the only real bridge that mattered. Weeks after Andrew lost control of Harrington Properties, his financial ruin became public knowledge. Veronica found herself in an uncomfortable position. She was engaged to a man who could no longer afford the luxurious perks she had come to view as entitlements. The mansion was under threat of foreclosure. Andrew's credit cards stopped working, and event invitations dried up once the real estate mogul's downfall became gossip fodder. Veronica tested Andrew's remaining resources by planning an extravagant wedding shower. But as vendors demanded deposits, Andrew couldn't produce the funds. Tension escalated into daily arguments. "You promised me a dream wedding in Italy," Veronica would hiss. "Now you can't even pay the caterer for a local reception," Andrew cornered, tried to reason with her. "I need time to reorganize. My legal team is negotiating with creditors. Can't you see I'm dealing with a crisis?" Veronica's response was ice cold. "A crisis you brought on yourself. And now I'm stuck with a man who can't deliver." Her accusations often targeted Lucy as well, twisting the narrative to make Lucy somehow responsible for Andrew's woes. "If she hadn't been pregnant, you wouldn't have been so distracted," she sneered, ignoring the fact that Lucy had left precisely because of Veronica's intrusion. In a final act of desperation, Andrew attempted to refinance the Beverly Hills mansion to inject cash into his personal accounts, but the mortgage lender refused after seeing the mountain of lawsuits and frozen assets tied to his name. That evening, Andrew returned home with a grim expression. He told Veronica that they'd need to drastically downsize, perhaps sell the mansion and move into a smaller home, or even an upscale apartment if they were lucky. Veronica's fury erupted. She hurled a crystal vase at the wall, screaming about how Andrew had ruined everything. "I can't be with a failure," she spat. Andrew watched the shards of crystal scatter across the floor, each fragment a piece of the future he had foolishly envisioned. The next morning, Veronica packed her designer suitcases and left, taking with her everything she deemed valuable, from jewelry to expensive artwork. She even demanded ownership of the ring Andrew had originally given her, threatening legal action if he tried to reclaim it. Andrew, too, exhausted to fight, let her walk away. And just like that, the mistress who once gleefully wore his ring was gone. Andrew stood in the foyer of his nearly empty mansion, the silence more deafening than any argument they'd ever had. Meanwhile, Lucy entered the final stages of her pregnancy with a renewed sense of peace, despite the heartbreak that occasionally resurfaced. She continued working until her due date loomed close, then went on maternity leave, confident she had enough savings to manage. Friends and neighbors offered emotional and material support, gift baskets, used baby furniture, kind words of encouragement. One crisp autumn morning, Lucy was organizing the nursery in her parents' home, a small sunlit room with pastel walls. A knock sounded at the front door. Her father answered only to find Andrew, standing there looking gaunt and disheveled. "I'm here to see Lucy," he mumbled. Her father, never one for theatrics, allowed him in his eyes, narrow with distrust, but tempered by concern for Lucy. Lucy felt her heart drop to her stomach at the sight of Andrew, pale with dark circles under his eyes, wearing a cheap suit that hung loosely on his frame. He was no longer the confident mogul who strutted around in tailored designer wear. He looked like a lost man, hollowed out by regret. For a moment they stood in silence, the weight of their shared history pressing on them. Andrew swallowed hard. "Can we talk?" he asked softly. Lucy nodded, guiding him to a sofa in the living room. Andrew began haltingly. I know I've done terrible things. I betrayed you, Lucy. I let you and our child down." He choked up tears, filling his eyes. "And now I've lost everything, my company, my money, Veronica, and I just wanted to say, I'm sorry." Lucy folded her arms across her chest, trying to stay composed. "I appreciate the apology," she replied quietly. "But that doesn't erase the pain you caused, or the fact that you abandoned me when I needed you most." Andrew wiped his eyes, nodding. "I know I'm not here to ask for pity or to worm my way back. His voice cracked. "I can't live with myself without trying to make amends. I want to help with the baby, if you'll let me." The sincerity in his tone caught Lucy off guard. She had prepared for anger, for excuses, but not for this raw vulnerability. She thought of her baby, the child Andrew had once dismissed. Even if she couldn't trust him with her heart, she had to consider her child's future. "I won't turn you away from your child," Lucy said, her voice firm yet gentle. "But you need to prove you can be a responsible father. I won't tolerate half measures." She took a deep breath. "We'll have a formal agreement. You'll provide child support if you can, and be consistent in showing up for your child. If you fail to do that, Andrew, we're done." Andrew nodded relief, spilling across his face. "Thank you, I promise I'll do better. I just hope one day you can forgive me." Lucy glanced at his tired eyes, seeing a flicker of the sincerity she remembered from their youth. Whether or not she could ever fully forgive was another question. For now, she focused on the child growing inside her who deserved to know their father, flawed though he may be. They talked for a while, discussing practicalities, doctor's visits, financial arrangements, boundaries. Lucy didn't sugarcoat her distrust, and Andrew didn't dare argue. When he left, she felt both lighter and more burdened. Allowing Andrew into her life again was a risk, but she knew she had to try for the baby's sake. As Lucy's due date approached, Andrew attempted to fulfill his promise. Though his funds were severely limited, he sold off the last of his luxury watches and some personal belongings to pay for prenatal care and to set aside a small savings for the baby. It was nowhere near the grand gestures of his past, but for Lucy, it was a sign of sincerity. Lucy went into labor on a crisp winter evening. Her mother and father rushed her to the hospital, while Samantha stayed by her side, offering encouraging words and ice chips. Andrew arrived in a flurry, nearly out of breath. Despite the tension with Lucy's parents, they allowed him into the room, recognizing that it was also his child about to be born. The labor was long, but eventually, Lucy gave birth to a healthy baby boy named Gabriel Andrew, stood at the foot of the hospital bed, tears streaming down his face as he witnessed the miracle of life, his son entering the world. In that moment, all the lies, affairs, and financial troubles seemed to vanish, replaced by a single, overpowering truth. He was a father. Lucy held Gabriel first, exhaustion and joy mingling on her face. Then she tentatively allowed Andrew to hold the baby. Andrew's hands shook as he cradled his son against his chest. For a second, his mind flashed back to the younger version of himself who once vowed to provide security and happiness for Lucy. The image felt achingly distant, but now cradling Gabriel, Andrew resolved to atone for his mistakes, however long it took. Over the next few days, Andrew visited Lucy and Gabriel at the hospital, regularly bringing flowers and baby essentials. Lucy maintained a cautious distance, reminding herself that Andrew's remorse did not erase his betrayal, but she couldn't deny the sincerity with which he doted on Gabriel. When Lucy was discharged, Andrew offered to help her settle at home. She accepted under strict conditions that he respect her and her family, and so began the tentative path toward co-parenting. Andrew sought therapy, confronted the root of his destructive behavior, and started job hunting. Like a man with everything to prove, he picked up freelance real estate consulting gigs, gradually rebuilding trust with former clients who had not completely written him off. Progress was slow, but it was progress. For Lucy, motherhood became a profound source of fulfillment. She discovered reserves of strength and patience she never knew she had. She still felt pangs of betrayal when she remembered her last months with Andrew, or glimpsed headlines about Veronica gallivanting around Europe. However, those memories no longer controlled her. With each gurgle and smile from Gabriel, Lucy found renewed purpose. No formal reconciliation took place between Lucy and Andrew. Lucy kept her boundaries firm, but she allowed him into Gabriel's life with carefully measured trust. The future was uncertain, but at least now a glimmer of hope and stability existed for the sake of a child who deserved both parents' best efforts. Miles away, Veronica discovered that life without Andrew Harrington was not as glamorous as she had anticipated. Word had spread that she ditched Andrew the moment his empire crumbled, tarnishing her social reputation. The wealthy circles she frequented grew wary of her. After all, no successful man wanted a woman who might leave at the first sign of trouble. Veronica tried to latch on to new benefactors, attending high-end events, flirting with entrepreneurs, even hinting at potential business collaborations. But most men saw through her manipulations. One by one, they distanced themselves, preferring more genuine company. Eventually, Veronica found herself cut off from the exclusive circle she once dominated with Andrew's money. She considered selling the expensive jewelry Andrew had given her, but the glitzy items had Andrew's monogram. Few buyers wanted them, suspecting potential legal baggage. Frustrated and running out of options, Veronica retreated to a smaller condo in a less ostentatious neighborhood, far from the paparazzi's gaze. Occasionally, Veronica would see a tabloid snippet about Andrew's downfall or Lucy's new baby. She'd scoff, dismissing them as irrelevant to her new life. Deep down, however, she felt the sting of humiliation. The ring she once flaunted, the symbol of her triumph, was now a reminder of her short-lived glory. Months passed, and Andrew steadily pieced together the fragments of his life. Though far from wealthy, he secured a modest apartment in a quiet suburb. He spent weekends with Gabriel, taking him on walks in the park and lulling him to sleep with gentle humming. He frequently apologized to Lucy, and while forgiveness was a mountain they might never fully climb, a small bridge of respect began to form between them. Lucy resumed teaching full-time. She found a comfortable routine, weekdays devoted to her students, and caring for Gabriel, weekends often visited by Andrew, who was learning the rudiments of responsible fatherhood. Bit by bit, the heartbreak in Lucy's eyes softened, replaced by cautious optimism. Word of Andrew's changed demeanor spread among a few ex-colleagues, and some were willing to hire him for smaller real estate deals. He tackled them with humility, a far cry from the brash mogul who once brushed off all criticism. In time, Andrew began earning a steady income, enough to cover his bills and contribute to Gabriel's upbringing. Meanwhile, Harrington Properties, now under new leadership, stabilized. The board, after ousting Andrew, restructured the company, salvaged some projects and divested others. Though Andrew had no direct stake in the revived firm, he felt a sense of relief that the business he once built wouldn't vanish entirely. In a twist of fate, Andrew received a letter one day, a notice that the last pending lawsuit against him had been settled partly through the company's insurance and partly through liquidation of Andrew's remaining shares. The ordeal was over, legally at least. Emotionally, Andrew knew his penance continued. Perhaps the sweetest moment of karma came on Gabriel's first birthday. Lucy organized a small gathering at a local park. Balloons swayed gently in the breeze, and a few close friends and family members arrived with gifts. Andrew turned up a simple teddy bear in hand, his eyes brimming with gratitude at being included. As Lucy cut a small cake, Andrew held Gabriel, helping the toddler pat at the frosting. Laughter rippled through the small group. In that instant, Andrew recognized a deeper kind of wealth, one he had forsaken for illusions of grandeur. He saw how Lucy glowed with warmth, how his parents-in-law looked on with cautious acceptance, and how Gabriel squealed in innocent joy. This was the life that truly mattered. Andrew would never be the same man he once was. Nor did he want to be. The bitter lessons of betrayal, greed and heartbreak had etched themselves into his soul, teaching him that love and loyalty outweigh status or luxury. The mistress he once worshipped had vanished. The pregnant wife he kicked out had shown resilience beyond measure, and the millionaire's fortune had dissolved in a cloud of hubris. All that remained was a humbled father striving to make amends, and a mother who had harnessed her pain to carve out a life of dignity for herself and her child. Thank you for staying with us through this roller coaster of betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimate redemption. Andrew's tale reminds us that the real measure of wealth isn't counted in bank statements or celebrity connections. It's found in the quiet loyalty of true relationships and the power of genuine love. While money can create an illusion of control and endless possibilities, it can also amplify our worst impulses, leading us down paths filled with deceit and isolation. In the end, nothing can replace the bonds of family friendship and personal integrity. If you found this story gripping, poignant, or thought-provoking, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue bringing you real-life dramas and cautionary tales that highlight our shared humanity. Join our growing community for more stories that capture the incredible spectrum of human experiences and the lessons we can all learn along the way.